feel like Quap's a little bit hard to kill just because of her blinking away. Because this is going to be a support.
And the tree armor.
Yeah, and like you have Clock and Tree who are like pretty difficult to kill. It is nice though, just because, especially like Tree who likes to sit in the trees. Obviously, if you have a Spirit Breaker, it means that he can't juke. Or be like annoying, because a Tree will want to protect your safe lane tower, right? Because usually when you play Tree, you play with like a ranged hero in lane, like a Drow or Medusa or whatever, and they have like a really nice lane. And then when they go to the jungle, Tree just sits there and defends. Something that's able to find him and kill him and make it so he can't just hold your safe lane tower for 10 years is like really effective. You want to like bring a bunch of heroes and just take the tower at some point just to force him out.
Wonder how, like, obviously Clockwork, he's got a couple of main targets, the Lina and the Disruptor. Not really the Dark Willow, you don't really want to get it on top of her because she'll just bedlam you and makes things a lot more challenging. I'm still kind of wondering what T1 are going to go with their last pick of the overall draft here. Like, are they going to go something like a Morphling just to pair together with a Dark Willow? Gives them a little bit more of that burst. You don't really get locked in by the Clockwork all that much. Treant's annoying, sure, but, you know, it gives you that late game potential.
Yeah, you kind of need... I mean, most carries buy these items, but you either want like a Manta buy or a Satanic buy or something like that. You like to have like 2 layers of Purge into Tree, because if you buy just a BKB, he'll just hold his overgrowth until you use it. T1...
Morphling can have 3, right? Like, he buys all those items.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty good.
What about the like this last pick for Fnatic in this phase?
This phase, I think they should pick... They see their off lane on T1, so it would be pretty good to pick your carry right now.
They're lacking damage, though, on Fnatic right now. Like, they need a big spike in damage. They can find people, and they can delay things a little bit, but... I mean, other than the supports, I feel like you have a very hard time killing right now on Fnatic.
Dude, I was like thinking in my head, damn, Lifestealer would be nice to not die to like Glimpse and Mars and Dark Willow and stuff, and you have a vehicle, in Clockwork Hook, but then it's low damage. I was thinking in my head, I was like, it's such a good lifestealer game, but then they have no damage.
Unless you absolutely stomp this lane, right? Like, then if you get a good start, you get that early armlet before you get these key timings up for T1, eventually build into something like the Desolator to even give you some extra tower push potential, obviously going to be great. They are... I mean, they've got decent AoE damage, right, to deal with Dark Willow inside the Shadow Realm, so that's not as big of a concern. Obviously, Lifestealer can't really do it, but...
Only issue with Lifestealer is that he is not a hero that buys, you know, the purging items. He doesn't buy Manta. BKB. He doesn't like to buy Satanic. He doesn't like to buy BKB. So something like Disruptor, this game is going to be really effective against him, especially when like Mars gets blink and can catch him off guard with a spear. It's a little scary, but at the same time he should be like relatively free for a while, and they do have damage. Like Queen of Pain is going to provide that, and they can pick one more hero here. Like
in these Fnatic bands, Razor, Morphling, I think that's ideal. What they considering what they were going up against. I mean, Clockwork could go into something like a Lotus Orb, at least to give them a little bit of extra save, I suppose, for the Lifestealer. And we see a Faceless Void come out. Okay, first time we've seen that in quite a while. They don't exactly have like great saving supports outside of the living armor, and the hook shot, you know, will provide that tiny little bit of a stun, but not too much else beyond that. I like the Void. It's just a question of how are they going to be able to counter it now. Beastmaster's gone from the pool. They wouldn't Venomancer them, would they? You say that, but Faith Beyond just broke the damage record on Venomancer up against a Faceless Void.
I'm sorry, that's Faith Beyond. Thank you very much.
Are you putting down jabs after that MVP-worthy performance? They end up going the Dark Seer anyway.
I am,
Stupid.
I'm a big fan of Darkseer, but I don't think
Darkseer, Sand King.
I think he's not like particularly amazing against the heroes. Like if the illusions that he creates with his wall are not great, but what he does do is he enables Raven's Lifestealer really hard, surging him to be able to get around fights and not get kited. The extra Ion Shell damage is, you know, this is the damage we're talking about. This makes the Lifestealer come online much earlier as a hero. He also lanes really well with Clockwork, and I think like Faceless Void wants to jump away, right? But when you just kind of keep chasing him with Surge, it's quite hard on his lane, potentially. again, there's a lot of burst on T1. They can murder anyone they see, I think. So, it's yeah, I like both drafts. Is what I'm trying to say. I see like this game could go either way. It really is just a game of execution and how they execute like pickoffs and team fight.
I'm going to be looking at DJ and Armel as to how they look to play together because they are basically all their damage or all their lockdown and burst potential for the first 20 or so minutes of the game.
I am definitely looking forward to this game number 2 as well. And we have them back for game number 1. That's going to be GoDz and John, your casters.
Welcome back to the cast. It's myself, GoDz. I'm no longer Budge MLP. That's nice to be upgraded. Thank you, Nat. And johnxfire. How are you doing, John?
Doing great. This should be a really exciting game. We were having a bit of a conversation as well about the draft. Darkseer was left in the pool. They take it up against a melee core for Savage. Could be a tough lane with Clockwork. Lots of back and forth. I think you have a lot more circles on T1 with the Arena, with the Terrorize, with the Chrono, with the Static Storm. So in terms of circles, T1 has a lot of AoE control, but Fnatic does as well, at least on the Treant and the Vac Wall. And we have seen those Vac Walls kind of change fights before, Parker. So it should be a really back and forth game here. I think we've seen from game one, Fnatic has, again, emphasized early laning phase. With the heroes they have, their laning phase looks pretty strong, especially in that off lane.
And don't sell Clockwork short. He's got a circle of his own, okay?
Fair enough.
A circle's the superior Dota shape. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what the more circles, the better? You don't want any squares or anything?
No squares. No squares for control. You want the circles. You want to have all of that big AoE for these engagements. And I think T1 might be looking to maybe change things up from the last game. We saw them play a lot more defensively. They have much more initiation potential here with the Mars in their side, with the Lina on their side, even with the Disruptor and Dark Willow. They can do a little bit more to start these fights. So T1 has a lot of angles to take here, and they can kind of rely on Savage to sit back and farm up big. There's a smoke and smoke. Savage and DJ will find each other, but not going to play poke. And Savage actually immediately just goes for Time Walk. So he's not looking to find that opportunity for the Time Lock. He knows it's going to be a rough lane. It's a Darkseer clock. Like Battery Assault, Iron Shell's going to be annoying once you hit level 3 on Jabs. Like level 2 Iron Shell with a Clockwork chasing down, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, it almost feels like he's trying to go in and to sneak a rune here. I guess he feels like they can't kill him with Time Walk unless somebody has like, boots on Clockwork. We'll see if he finds a way to sweep in, but Jabs is kind of mad again. So they should know what this Void is up to. Yeah, they're tipping him. He's like, yeah, come and take this rune.
Just gonna toy move. Toy move. I don't know why they love pointing out their... I know he's a TIE player, Toy. He stood in for Motivate Trust, and every single time, sometimes they just have to toss his name out, a Toy move. It's like, that's something Toy would do, likely. And it's like, all right. They love poking fun at our best friend at MyProDota 10, whose birthday is every day. TIE boys just have their own memes.
Having some fun. You got to make fun of the oldies every now and then, the boomers of TIE Dota. So, no difference here as Jabs and 23 Savage having some fun. Yeah, this is going to be a very high harassed lane. You've got Iron Shells, Clockwork with Battery Assault. They're going to be constantly getting up in this Void's face trying to force that Time Walk. But Void, already readying himself. You mentioned the Time Walk. He's also got the stick. Going to be playing just for as much sustain as possible.
Yeah, it's just going to focus in that farm. Whitemon's really got the work behind him to keep applying that Thunder Strike, try to keep these heroes low. There is a good amount of regen on DJ. At least he does still have the salve to play with. And they can always just go for the creep pulls. So in the end, you can kind of run this greedier off lane, just pull back the creep wave, get your EXP, wait for that level 3 spike. It feels a lot scarier coming out from Fnatic, although DJ is dropping low in this trade.
Is he winning this battle? He's trying to, but he gives up first blood. Whoa. Must have been a little while since he's played the old Clockwork. Now, Battery Assault is not what it used to be. Although I actually think he had played Clockwork not too long ago, but, we'll ignore that.
Yep, he does at least get a top up there. He gets back to base, grabs an extra salve, an extra set of tangos to help sustain, but you don't TP like that against this Disruptor.
Oh, no. This lane is off to a terrible start, yeah.
Whatever, dude. I just woke up, not even trying right now.
That's perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Jabs. That's exactly what we're all thinking. Well, that's what DJ's thinking, perhaps.
And now he has to smoke back to lane. And,
Woo. And
on the
Jabs is
bright
dead.
side, it gets. Oh god, yeah.
Whitemon's
doing so much.
doing.
Oh, man.
He'll die to creeps. DJ actually got the XP, so good news for him. He gets back in time, but he's creating a free farm lane for this Void.
Yeah, and it's not what you expect. It's a Darkseer clock. You expect that lane to really be aggressive, to line up for Darkseer and clock, and he's just putting his body forward, spamming out those Thunder Strikes. He's going to have boots in the lane now, so it's harder for DJ to chase him down with the Battery Assault, and that just makes it a lot tougher to find that footing. The opposite lane here for T1 Fnatic, you've still got Raven on the Lifestealer and Johnny Well on the Treant, up against Cuckoo on the Mars and Zephyr on Dark Willow. It's holding a little bit more even. Like Cuckoo and Raven are trading farm. There's not as much kills coming out. There is still aggression that can come through here, especially for T1. You can kind of Bramble, use the Spear, use the God's Rebuke to shove someone into Bramble, but you have to respect like the durability from this lane. Treant and Lifestealer are fairly tanky. You don't really want to fully commit onto them. Lots of HP, and Johnny Well can trade back. So I think this is the more passive lane coming out here, and it should end up being pretty good for Raven if he does just manage to free farm. Like, he's not going to be able to flash farm as much later on, so having a good laning start for the Lifestealer is a huge boon for Fnatic.
Yeah. It's nice to see a good old standard honest Dota lane. None of this shenanigans of the top lane where, you know, this Disruptor is just carrying the game. But taking a look at the mid lane as well, the Armal Queen of Pain versus the Carolina. Two classic mid laners, and so far it has been Lina getting by far the better of Armel's Queen of Pain. So Carl getting some revenge for last game now that he's on the Lina.
Yeah, just having a much stronger start, really using his range advantage. His
Pull
wave
back
clear
top.
quite well. Whoa.
Vacuum into the cogs. They get on top of Whitemon, who does break out, but with the Iron Shell damage as well, they manage to get the kill. And DJ will get out A-OK. This is what they needed. Just a few levels, hit like level 3, and that's when they get a whole lot stronger now that they've got level 2 Iron Shell, level 2 Battery Assault.
Yeah, that's when the aggression can come in, and this is where you can start punishing the Disruptor. Savage is still fairly well protected. I mean, you're losing your Disruptor. You're not really stopping the Face's Void from farming, so I think you take that trade for T1. Still having that emphasis on cutting off Whitemon, which is really what you want. Like, you want your support to be sacrificed there. You want Savage to still farm, so T1's still getting something from this lane, but you do have to watch as those levels come in. Like, say, once they've got the value point in Surge, it makes it a lot easier for DJ to keep looking for those opportunities now. And if you can always line them up, it should be, you know, good days ahead for Jabs to just clear out the waves, get the farm, hit level 6, and start building up on that Disruptor, on that Darkseer.
Well, they come back into the top lane. They're out of time dilation to bother Fnatic and keep them at bay with the glimpse as well. So just making sure they keep their distance away from these double Iron Shells.
Makes it a bit tough. Like, you do at least have this window. Glimpse is a fairly long cooldown, so you can try to realign, go again, but Jab still doesn't have the best way to sustain his mana just yet, no?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, the lack of mana causing Fnatic some problems, but they are still able to apply some decent pressure here. As DJ says, thank you very much. I'll take some creeps for myself as well. But so far, so good for the Faceless Void. It's not a free farm lane with the constant pressure, but he's staying alive. He's getting some decent-ish CS and also keeping the Darkseer away from creeps himself.
Yeah, it's still, you know, it's still a good amount of farm. I think you are gonna have that earlier spike in the Void, but as a hero, the Void does take quite a fair few items to get running. So considering that Savage is having a pretty free lane along with Raven as well, that should lead to the Lifestealer having that earlier item spike. You know, spike phase boots into Armlet, you're pretty much set to go. You've got the vehicles on hand in the game. You can start running around at. T1 does rotate their supports onto mid, but so does Fnatic in cutting off those power runes. Armel not going to find his. Is taken by Whitemon.
He may get glimpsed
might
back
just
here.
keep it.
LSA waiting for him. And that's a kill. Carl happily taking that one with the Laguna Blade. Tried to get the high five out of it.
Nice big kill. Great rotations out from T1. Thought they had a response on Fnatic, but they only really tossed in Johnny Well to cut off the bot rune. So maybe just a bit too aggressive on the Blink 4 to contest that rune there. Level 1 Blink, pretty long cooldown. Not the safest for the Queen of Pain.
They want Carl mid. DJ TPs with an Iron Shell and a Surge. Doesn't get on top of the Battery Soul, and he's got a Disruptor Whitemon there to help him out as well. So Lina able to hold her ground there. A cheeky little play from DJ and Jabs with the Iron Shell Surge TP, but doesn't even come close to working.
And that frees up the side lanes a bit more. You're breaking up the Clockwork Darkseer lane, so that does make it a bit more relaxed there for Savage to just keep farming up, only having to deal with the Ion Shell, which is still annoying, but you've got Time Walk at a pretty good level now, so you can just kind of sustain through a lot of that damage. And that does also open up the bot lane a bit more, and they can punish Jabs again.
Jabs just seems constantly out of mana in this off lane. The harass that has been coming out from this Disruptor with the second point in the Thunderstrike, and Void just able to sustain himself in this lane means that it doesn't really feel like there's been too many kill opportunities for this Clockwork Darkseer lane.
No, they've just not been able to get aggressive outside of those kills onto Whitemon earlier on. And with a shifting gears here, with the emphasis onto the mid, you are seeing, again, safe laners open up a bit more. It's a one-on-one lane for Raven, which is a little bit more manageable for Cuckoo. At the same time, you know, Raven's still not being stopped from farm, but he's starting to lag behind that Void. He's still going to have that earlier item spike, but you still have to be concerned about Void just playing the long game. Like, Savage is going for Mask of Madness into Maelstrom, so he can farm a lot faster than Raven can. They've already got the Infest up in Raven, likely just waiting for those phase boots and for the armlet to really be done before getting any sort of movement out, but you kind of want that out early.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. It's not just this top lane going poorly. I mean, we touched upon how well Carl's been doing against Armel, and Armel, we saw Armel dying, but Raven just being straight up out-farmed and bullied by the Mars. Anytime Raven goes up to the creeps, Cuckoo's there, hitting him with a God's Rebuke, bullying him away, using it to get denies. So all three lanes being won with a CS and net worth advantage by T1. Usually, you know, you win 3 lanes, more often than not, you're winning the Dota game. We'll have to see what Fnatic plays can be made, because this is not how they envision this game starting.
Okay, whatever.
I think for Fnatic, they're going to need level 6s to be up, especially on DJ. You want that hook to be ready. At that point, you could try to play with a hook infest, jump onto a nice soft target. I think you're going to want to maybe look out for Carl on mid. That seems to be the juiciest target you could make a move onto, and kind of get rolling from there. So they just need to hit level spikes in the supports, hit that early item timing on Raven to really get the aggression going. Before that's up, T1's happy enough to play the slower game. Just farm up. They've got stacks in their jungle that Carl can start to clear out. He can start to escalate very fast, and that Lina travel's not going to be too far off. Straight into the BKB. She's going to be a lot more ready for that early aggression that Fnatic might want to bring out here.
And I like this. They even bring over the Disruptor to leech some XP to try to get level 6. So T1, you know, doing all these small efficiency things. Disruptor also just protecting the Lina in case any kind of smoke gank comes here. So a lot of farm going Carl's way, and Whitemon happily protecting him and securing it all for him. 2 triple stacks, I believe it was, in the jungle. But it's bottom where T1 want to make their first move. They got that level 6 on DJ. They cogs in Cuckoo, who gets a spear up, but there's no counterplay, no TPs. T1 lose their Mars in the bottom.
Yeah, nice pick-off coming out for Fnatic. Oh.
Armel. Potential glimpse. LSA. Is it time? You bet.
Yeah, the chain stuns. T1 just has a lot more control coming out. They can line up with the glimpse back. Again, it's still level 1 blink on our Quap as well, and there's still that slight cast animation. So even if you do get glimpse back, try to immediately blink. If Carl lines up his Light Strike Ray just right, which he has been doing in the past few of these engagements, it's just really easy to keep them locked in, and it makes it a lot harder for Fnatic to kind of bail out. They will punish Whitemon, though, at the least. So, kill coming out for Jabs. Not the biggest kill, but they've needed something on the map, and that does help accelerate that Ags timing for the Darkseer. Neither side really going for a tower push. I don't think T1 has enough to rip through a Treant Protector's Living Armor just yet. They're going to have to drag in their Lina if they want to get that done. So, very static in terms of map control here, GoDz, but the economy is still going T1's way. They've got the better jungle stacks. Oh, hook.
They're not done. They've now caught Carl and the Lina. The fear comes out from the Terrorize. The Sonic Wave follow-up. Carl still alive. He's going to turn and try to throw out some damage.
Oh.
And with the TP in from 23 Savage, they've got a Chronosphere if they need it. And Armel is going to be next to full. Fnatic get a bit overzealous looking for the Lina kill. And they're going to have Januel get glimpsed back in and Lagooned by Carl. 3 dead on the Fnatic side. T1 can get a T1 mid tower to follow it up.
That is big. It looked like they had a really good angle on Carl, but they just didn't have enough follow-through damage. They weren't playing with the Infest. They just let Raven farm. And now Fnatic going for a more slower playstyle on Raven. You know, just trying to get those initial items before having him rotate in cost him a big amount of map control. Mid being gone, opens up way more rotations for T1. They can start contesting the triangle more. They can set up for Roshan if they feel like they've got the opportunity to do so. And the map's just a lot smaller for Fnatic. Like, there are still item spikes they're waiting for. We have no items yet on Armel. Going for the Kaya first, likely Kaya Sanj. Cuckoo is spotted out. They have the hook again, misses.
Ooh. That would have been, you know, not a game-changing pickup, but every little kill is kind of how Fnatic, I feel like, get back into this game. They need to play this pick-off style. They've got the Clockwork pick with a Darkseer Iron Shell, and they're going to have this Lifestealer perhaps ready to fight now. He's got the Armlet. They can buff him up a lot with the Iron Shell. He's got a nice Infest target in the Clockwork early on, or even the Queen of Pain. So there is potential for Fnatic to start playing a lot more aggressive with this maxed out Iron Shell.
Yeah, this is the moment where they can start to get some of that burst damage through, or at least some great sustain damage through. And I think for the side of Fnatic, they have been sacrificing a few of their cores, but yeah, you look at Raven, Armlet's up. He could be ready to go if he wants to. No phase boots, just the Armlet, so damage might be a bit lacking. But the side of Fnatic now are starting to group up top. They've got the Overgrowth on hand as well, so that could make a really good follow-up for a Vac wall into Overgrowth. The team fight is starting to line up there, into the Cogs. Lots of potential for that control. They just have to pull it off. It looks like they'll just get that shove in on the top. Bot lane being shoved in by T1 as well.
Big
Rotations coming in
though.
for the defense.
Yeah, but T1 are smoking in with their Mars and Disruptors, so they have Static Storm, they have Arena, and they counterplay this one. They start things off with the Arena as Carl gets hook-shotted on. He's the bait here, but they're going to lose him to begin with. The Infest save is there, but DJ, still too much damage for him to deal with them. The Static Storm on the ground means Lifestealer could be in some trouble, can't get out of the kinetic field. Fnatic lose 2. Perhaps the right idea to start taking a fight and punishing this Lina, but T1 made sure they brought numbers.
And he managed to counterfight really well. Just hard angles to take for the side of Fnatic. Like, they managed to open up with a great hook shot, a great infest save, but they didn't have enough for everyone else. They didn't have their Darkseer around in that fight. They had no Vac wall for their own counter control after T1 starts to clump up. So they just couldn't stop that. And T1 now are the ones kind of playing to the pace we saw Fnatic do last time. Except maybe a lot faster than Fnatic did in Game 1 as well. They're willing to have Savage come in just with his Mask of Madness, threaten the Chrono. He hasn't had to use it yet in this game. He's still finding a lot of farm on the map. Jabs is getting a lot of space up top. The investment into that Ags and Darkseer is going to come true here, Parker. You're going to have that plus 275 HP with 2 charges on the Iron Shell, so much more durable up front. But we need to see that full combination come true. We need to see a Lifestealer infested in on a Clockwork with Iron Shell, right? That's where your damage is coming through. That's where the single target pick off goes a lot faster, leaves less room for T1 to respond. But they still haven't taken that stance yet with Raven. He should be ready now, though. Phase Boots and Armlet, that's a pretty good starting point to start playing aggressive. Let's start playing on that top jungle. T1 are well aware with a really good forward ward, so they know where the Lifestealer wants to play, and they're probably not looking to much punish yet, but they've got a smoke here on hand on T1.
Oh, and they're bringing in the Void. They've got so much teamfight control. I saw the Mars Arena and the Static Storm, but that's without even having to use... They've yet to use this Chronosphere. And that's the perfect spell to fight into a Lifestealer. You've got built-in magic immunity. Well, Chronosphere says, I'm going to negate that. So, 23 Savage is fishing around, looking for that Lifestealer. And Raven, if he goes for this creep wave, may get picked off here, but he scouts out the Disruptor. Whitemon perhaps positioned too far forward. She'll let 23 Savage go first so he could get the Chrono. And now Fnatic know where T1 are, and they are making their own move. Smoked up behind the Tier 1 mid. They could see Carl in a second here. DJ goes running in, gets the hook shot to lead things off. Triple TP coming in, but T1 may lose this Lina before anything can be done. Gets pushed out of there. The Overgrowth there as well. They need a bit more damage with the lead seed. Have they got Carl? You bet. Willow charging forward with the Bedlam, doing some good damage to counterplay this one. DJ now in some trouble with the Faceless Void there. Mask of Madness and a Chronosphere. Could look for this Jab's Darkseer, but he's standing on top of the wall, daring the Faceless Void to come in and go on him. Blink out from Queen of Pain. Can Savage find the Chrono he's looking for? There's a Sonic Wave on top. Savage gets low. He can't time walk it off because of the Mask of Madness, but he is going to be okay. He'll survive his way through it. 3 for 2 trade in the end, with the Mars jumping the backline, helping provide some cover for Savage.
Still a big pick-off for Fnatic. Like, it is a costly one. They sacrificed Jabs in the end, so it feels a lot better for T1, but they do manage to pin down Armel initially without sacrificing as much. They don't lose Armel, they don't lose Raven, they don't lose Jabs. I think that is still decent, but T1 still comes out on top. They just managed to get the heroes in. They fought around the tier 2. Good TP spot for T1. The mid tier 1 still stands as well. It wasn't the most secure rotation out without smoke. And T1 still maintained their 4K lead. And we have seen our first chrono. Savage just using it to ensure a kill. We're not seeing a lot of emphasis on that spell anyway. You have so much more control from your other heroes. You've got the Static Storm, you've got Arena. You really don't need your Void to take point here. And I think Savage is playing this nice second follow-through really well. You know, he's not the primary initiator. He comes in with the damage. He can hold on to chrono as long as he wants and get rolling from there. Whereas for Fnatic, it feels like they're all in on Clockwork initiation. We've seen a couple of infests, but it definitely lines up off the back of DJ, and he's always got to be on point with his movement.
Oh, got the rage off in time. Cuckoo tried to blink spear him back. Januel does get found by a Cursed Crown here. Follow up Bramble Maze and a Bedlam. A lot of damage. Januel needs to get over these trees, and with the Yule Scepter, he's going to be chased down, and Carl will follow up with the Dragon Slave. It should be a kill. Okay, there we go. Took him some time, but they end up getting it. One of the things I was curious to see is, like, do Fnatic try and punish this Chronosphere cooldown? Like, it creates a window where they can try and maybe take a fighter objectives, but it seems like they are prioritizing just getting some of their items up.
I mean, they could. I think the issue still stands that even without Chrono, you still have to worry about Arena, you have to worry about Static Storm, even the LSA, the Bramble Maze is also really strong. So they don't have the cleanest angle unless it's really just Savage standing alone that they can punish. If they find a Void without Chrono by himself, that's the opening you want, but T1's not giving them that opening. There's just no opportunity there for Fnatic to play around. They do have at least one forward ward in the triangle, but not enough watching that top jungle. Though the hook's out.
Hook shot. Then go in on the Dark Willow. Is the Iron Shell damage going to be enough inside the Shadow Realm? The spear is there to push him away, and the Dark Willow will survive. Jabs, he's maybe overcommitted now as well. Tries to run his way out, but there was a glimpse as well as a maze that he couldn't find a way out of.
Yeah. And it's just a bit clunky for Fnatic. Like, it really does feel like their initiation's only one route. It's really just Clockwork hooking in. Maybe down the line, if you get a blink on Januel, you can at least start with Overgrowth, much wider AoE. You can try to catch multiple heroes out and break it up. Or Mel?
He's in some trouble here. Speared into the arena. Can he get this blink off? Not with the Void there for some extra time locks, and Fnatic are just bleeding kills one by one. They're being picked off, and it's not even just pickoffs. Like, they're the ones who are making that play with the Clockwork and the Darkseer previously. T1 just taking advantage of superior farm, superior numbers.
Yeah, they're just using that fight potential they have on T1 really well. Fnatic, they're playing the slower game with a Lifestealer. And this is where the issue stands. Lifestealer just doesn't farm as fast as a Void. Yeah, and Void's already a very slow farmer, but Lifestealer's even slower. He just doesn't clear out camps, doesn't clear out waves all too well. Raven's just been taking the spot up top, sneaking into jungle when he can. But, you know, Savage is still keeping up, and Savage will be set to overtake. As the game scales on, Lifestealer does have a bit of a timing window or item window where he does get strong. AC, Silver Edge, a second BKB, you know, a BKB to provide him second spell immunity on top of Rage is going to be great, but that's still all counteracted by Chrono. So you still have this issue where late game, sure, you can itemize on Lifestealer, but Void is this hero that doesn't really have a counterplay unless you have a very specific lineup to deal with it. And they don't quite have that on Fnatic. So I think they're going to have to watch this game as it goes on, because I feel like Fnatic really wanted to hit this early aggressive window as they did in game 1, but the lanes didn't quite line up. So their timings are kind of thrown all over the place. They are still kind of clumped up, but T1 is as well. Just playing around the triangle, maybe looking to start that Roshan off a pickoff. Not quite seeing the opportunity yet. But they are, again, just using this map control really well. They're playing under their own wards, just staying protected, and they're not giving any openings to Fnatic.
Well, for T1, they're happy to take the kills when Fnatic present them, like when they run out and make these plays, but right now, they're happy to also sit back, perhaps knowing that this Lifestealer's game is going to be... It's going to be rough. Lifestealer, not a hero known for, like, solo carrying games. Usually when you're playing Lifestealer carry, you want, like, that second semi-carry in the mid lane, which, you know, Queen of Pain, not exactly fitting the bill, but I think more than anything, Lifestealer's going to have a rough time late game because both cores, the Lina and the Faceless Void, are traditionally heroes that kind of can counter the Lifestealer pretty well. The Clockwork with the Infest on top onto the Lina maybe somewhat makes up for that, but it's still going to be a tough matchup for Raven. He'd love to find some more kills for himself. Top lane, they've got the hookshot to follow up on the Dark Willow. And that will be enough damage to get the kill on Zephyr. So Fnatic find a kill, but it's just a support, John. They're still not finding any of these like big pickups that they'd really like to get.
No, they're not finding the beef here. They're opening up the burger patty and looking for that patty, and they're just not finding that big chunk of meat they want. So they're missing out on a lot to really fatten themselves up here in Fnatic. And T1, sure, you lose your Dark Wall. It doesn't really matter. They're getting space out for the Void. They're getting that farm up. BKB not too far off for Savage, so he's not going to have to worry about a lot of control here from Fnatic in the next few fights. And they're just pressuring Raven. Like, sure, he instantly gets off the rage, but he's forced away from that top lane, forcing his own supports to kind of go closer, you know, play this protection game for the lifestealer, just cutting them off from any sort of gains. And just, again, working the map. They have managed to swing the net worth back a bit here, Parker. 3K from 4K a while ago for T1, so there is a little bit more room being given out to Armel and Jabs especially, but not enough to really swing the game. You still have this massive lead on Carl. They are trying to pressure Cuckoo, but again, it's just a game of tag up top.
It does seem like Fnatic are happy to go back into that slower farming style and try to get these next couple of items. As it stands, so T1 seems to be playing into their hands. We'll see how these first couple of big team fights go. T1 are smoking up, looking to make their next move with a BKB on the Void. They feel like there is nothing that can deal with 23 Savage in this upcoming team fight. They've just got to find the initiation. They get down a nice deep ward, but when this smoke wears off, they may get scattered around the pit. Sentry will find the Observer on the high ground as T1 reveal their position. It's up to Fnatic to make a move if they want to stop this Roche going down. I imagine they know what's happening, but they need to make that smoke play happen soon. Roche not dying too fast, and as a result, T1 decide they've got to back off and let Fnatic come to them and play around their high ground advantage. They've got that ward on the cliff, so if Fnatic try and head that direction, T1 can take advantage. Oh, hookshot mid. They start things off. That's a BKB on the Mars. He does manage to barely get it off, as well as the Arena. He does end up dying to the Sonic Wave. Chronosphere on 3! All on the edge, perfectly placed, but the Overgrowth is there to stop any damage coming out. 23 Savage has the follow-up from the Lina, though Carl finishes off the clockwork with the LSA onto the Lifestealer. They get the follow-up kill onto Raven. 2 down, and they want more. They're not done. Carl with the Yules into the LSA, but it's going to be dodged by Armel's BKB. And Armel's turning and fighting, doing what he can. Has a blink out, which he may just have to use, because he is not winning this battle. As Jabs has been stunned up on the back lines. Caught by the root. Can he get out of this one with the Surge? It looks unlikely, but he makes it out. Okay. Queen of Pain Armel needs to blink out as well, but gets hit by the bash right off the bat. Blinks back to the safety of his tier 2 tower, and meanwhile it's Januel running in, perhaps looking to be a hero and save the day, save his teammates. He ends up going down, so T1 do edge out Fnatic in this team fight.
A lot of back and forth there, Parker. Really good overgrowth coming out from Januel to break off that BKB use from Savage. If he didn't get that off, I think you might have been just able to focus in onto Raven, whack in that Lifestealer, because that did cut him off in his chrono use as well. So a lot of counterplay coming through. T1 still come out on top, but this does cut off the Roshan. They expended all their big spells. No Static Storm for a follow-up fight there. No Arena just yet, although the cooldowns are relatively low. So it's going to be back up if they want to, but it's just down to how Fnatic initiates. Again, they're so reliant on just getting a good hook into with the Infest. And it is good damage to start off with, but you lack that follow-through control until Januel has his blink. He does have the money for it. He does buy it out now. So it's going to be easier for your Treant to jump in on top of that hook shot, get a good overgrowth when T1's collapsing and turn these team fights around. You just have to be very disciplined with your spacing as well. You have to be very well aware of where you're taking these fights if you're Fnatic, because we've seen Savage, that 3-man chrono, it was big. There was no follow-up, but if he gets that in a much better fight, a much better lined-up fight for T1, that could really just change the game.
Yeah, the Lina did show up just at the end to do some damage here. Blink Spear in the mid lane. Pop gets caught before a BKB, but they get the vacuum. What a vacuum coming out as Armel looking to turn and fight now with his BKB pop. They got another overgrowth on 23 Savage, who barely managed to time walk out. He keeps himself alive, and Carl on the front lines, dishing out all the damage with the Lina. DJ goes down on the clockwork, and time perhaps to hightail it out of here as Fnatic Raven trying to surge his way out of there. Gets an Iron Shell, but they barely keep the Faceless Void alive on the side of T1. That was so close.
Yeah, and it's down to Januel again with these big overgrowths. He's just managing to punish that early BKB use from Savage, and probably should be making him think twice now on that usage in the middle of the fight. This does open up Roshan. Without the supports, without the clockwork to scout out and pressure or even try to steal with a hook, Fnatic can't really contest. Armel's way too far to steal, and it's such a risky move to make. We'll surrender that first Aegis, and that will go the way of Karl. So Lina has 2 lives, rushing the MKB here as well, not too far off to deal with that evasion on Lifestealer, and once that's up, it's going to be a lot easier to just take these fights. You're not even at the point where Lifestealer has that evasion talent yet, but just a preemptive build from Karl to ensure that he's going to always be able to hammer in on that big core. Despite all these wins, though, T1, 9-21 here, Parker, still only a 4K lead. So Fnatic aren't out of the game. They're not really too far behind in gold. If you look at the gold distribution here, Savage is above Jab, sure, but barely above. Like 400 gold above. Raven's not too far behind, neither is Armel. The runaway here is really just Alina. So in that sense, outside of Alina, Fnatic can still play around. They still have some power here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there comes a point where they can carry this game with the Lifestealer. Karl taking a lot of damage down bottom, but they don't want to hard commit for the kill because of the Aegis that could just spell their undoing. But, at some point, Raven maybe gets farmed enough to carry this game, particularly with the buffs from the Iron Shell, the Clockwork with that initiation for the Infest Bomb. He does need a lot of items, it feels like. The BKB is going to help give him some protection for the Static Storm particularly. That seems to be the main reason he wants it, as well as just having the Rage and a BKB and then maybe a second Rage for a lot of magic immunity. But BKB alone may not bring him enough damage. We'll have to see perhaps one more item on top of that.
Yeah, definitely not. He's going to need a little bit more there. And you can kind of rely on your Quap to maybe come in with a really good Sonic Wave, but it does feel like that spell drops off a bit in damage output, especially without the Ags. So we'll see if that opening comes up. T1 will go for a smoke play with a DD on Savage.
Okay.
They find a good target here.
Johnnuel immediately pops it, blinks away. There's a dust as they didn't quite... I don't think they even end up catching vision of him. Glimpse back with the Observer Ward giving vision. Nicely done by Whitemon. They'll get the kill, but that was Johnnuel's job all along. Just scout out any smoke ganks, protect the cores. His death is all part of the plan to some extent for Fnatic.
It's not the worst here to lose. It's a sacrifice you're willing to make for Fnatic. They're buying more space for Jabs to work that bot lane, keep it shoved out, keep getting that farm up. Jabs is going to hit his Hex timing relatively soon, considering the state of game. So you will have a big piece of control coming in. I mean, he's been really impactful with his Blink and Normal Punch. Like, we saw that illusion damage onto the Lina. There is, they do have that gold lead on the Lina, but you can use it against T1 with a Vac Wall, with normal punch. There's a lot of damage output T1 can take as well if they don't respect that damage output from Jab. So there's still a window here for Fnatic, but T1 are doing a great job of just pressing the small advantage of CK, pushing on onto the mid tier 2, already taking out the top, only leaving the bot after this one. And that just leaves a lot of opportunities for high ground plays here. Still 2 minutes on that Aegis as well, so if they wanted to, they could, but looks like they want pickoffs before going for that.
Yeah, they are hunting, trying to fish out and reel in some of these Fnatic heroes who are peskily split pushing these waves constantly.
I just woke up, not even trying right now.
You're talking about Jabs' build. I like it a lot because not just the illusion, but also just the control, like the 2-second stun out of a normal punch into a Hex later on. That's a lot of control, particularly against BKB cores. Like, all these cores want to go BKB. How do you prevent that? The Hex into normal punch or normal punch into Hex is one way to stop them getting those BKBs off.
Yeah, and that's what we saw from game 1, right? Where Savage was constantly getting caught out without using his BKB. And that could be the way Fnatic turn this game around. They will have to do something about the high ground. They will force the smoke out. Aegis is still up for a minute here, so Karl can take point as much as he wants.
Yeah, he's not the target you want to go on, but they're looking for that Infest in. DJ on the backlines. They get the Morris, but the Force Up is there to push him a bit further away. The Overgrowth locks him in place. Can the Lifesteal finish him off? Not with the Corona, but the Sonic Wave will do the damage. Lifesteal is still alive and kicking for now, but his Rage is worn off. He needs to get his BKB off, but the Fear is stopping him. Gets the BKB off, but he's being bashed now by the Faceless Void. There's too many bashes. Oh! It was perma-bash, like 3 or 4 bashes just back to back. And he just couldn't move, even in the BKB. And a great Terrorize from the Dark Willow.
Now, it looked like a good start. Mansion cleanup Cuckoo, forced to buy back pretty big. But again, you just don't have the follow-through to deal with everyone else. So you are very reliant on Johnnuel getting a good angle with the Overgrowth. And T1 are much more prepared for that counterplay now. They've got a self-dispel on Savage with Satanic up.
Yeah.
So it's not a big worry if he does BKB, although
Vacuum punch on the Carl, but Jabs maybe throwing away his life to just try and save the buildings here. He will instantly buy back. Look to come back into this fight as they want to defend their base here. They get the nice long-range hook shot from DJ, the pushback onto the Void, but there's no follow-up stuns. And DJ, he's wondering, where's his team at? They were not ready for that long-range hook shot. They had completely different ideas of just defending the high ground, so it's another casualty on the Fnatic side. And T1 do decide to back off a little bit for now, maybe thinking they want to heal up, wait for some cooldowns, and get that next kind of line of items in, but really good fight for T1.
yeah, they just win out in a big way. And Fnatic, they do protect their racks. They're not losing their mid racks. They still don't have potential to go up against mid creeps yet with a tier 2 bot protecting them. So they're still in the game. They are, you know, trying to find angles. Again, I think a lot of it still hangs onto Jabs with a good normal punch play. They are going to smoke out with Travels here.
Yeah, what can they find? Bottom lane, there's the punch with the Infest Bomb, the vacuum follow-up onto the wall. The 4-sub's trying to save him. Nice attempt by Whitemon, but so hard to get him to face the right way, and now Whitemon going to look to get himself out of there. Does have the kinetic field, but Hookshot will find him.
Yeah, it's lining up. They managed to get some good punishment. Great use of that smoke Travels play with the Infest as well. And that will keep T1 back. But that's a huge network swing here, Parker. From 10 to 7k. They get 3k off the back for that entire engagement. And that does give Fnatic a little bit more breathing room. They take the mid tier 1. They can start to take over the jungle just a little bit. Shove in the bot lane as well. Start to take a tier 2 out and maybe, you know, work this map control their way. Start to line up for the next rush, because it's only a minute and a half until we see that respawn. If T1 just played a little bit more safe, or, you know, managed to respond in time, they could have had an easy ride to just farm it out until next rush. But now Fnatic are getting sort of a second wind. Like DJ has been on and off with the hooks, but it has been lining up, and they just keep playing with the Infest on on Darkseer now. With that blink on Jabs, you have another wave starting these fights, and this is the big way to start with Vac Wall, with normal punch. The illusions just do so much from Carl.
Yeah, just looking to find those kills. Not going to find one in the top lane. But, I mean, you mentioned the 10k to a 7k gold lead just off of the team fight. Right after it, with the tower they get in the map control, they turn to a 5, now under 5k gold lead, or hovering around that 5k mark. Fnatic are not out of this one just yet. See what their next move is going to be. They probably do need to respect that team fight with these ultis back up. The Chronosphere particularly one that they just don't have the best answers to. Particularly with Void having the BKB and the Satanic, so makes it a lot harder to rely on this Overgrowth to lock him down even when he pops BKB.
Yep. Just makes it a lot harder to break off Savage's control, and I think both sides might be just setting up for Roche. You know, they're just playing patiently, sticking together, waiting for that next big objective. I think Fnatic it's starting to feel like they've got better Roche, just because they've got at least the flair to always give the vision. So it's very hard for T1 to take Roche on unless they get a clockwork kill first. And T1 are going to line up for a kill opportunity. They do smoke up, maybe getting some defensive wards out, but they need to cross that river, and they don't have vision on the other side. They do have a lane ward down bot, but it's not giving them the info they need. So they're not going to be able to find the kill they need as well to set up for that next Roche, which is an instant spawn. That's quick.
Well, not sure. Both teams at least fully alive right now. I'm not sure if there's any major items anyone's waiting on, so might not favor one team more than the other necessarily. As both teams will begin the game of posturing. Faceless Void with that shard can now use his Time Walk to go in and out. Some good scouting and just some nice little plays you can make with this reverse Time Walk. And it will get scouted. Rocket Flare going to be thrown out just to kind of keep tabs of what's going on. 23 Savage is happy to kind of walk back in and even kind of reveal that he might be roshing. But Jab's doing a nice move in the bottom lane, just using that Iron Shell, going to keep shoving these waves. That split push pressure is going to keep forcing T1 to come back and address the lane equilibrium before they can go for Roshan. It makes taking Rosh that much more difficult.
Yeah, it's giving Fnatic an opening for a smoke play of their own. Smoked up here, looking for the angle. They are standing under a ward, so if that pops in a bad manner, that gives enough information for T1 to back off. And it's a tightrope game right now. This team fight just determines the next Rosh, and that next Rosh determines the high ground for either side. There's an opportunity for Fnatic. There's an opportunity for T1. Neither side really wants to take that massive risk. Looks like T1 does manage to get the better end. You know, with the smoke out, they haven't been able to rotate in Fnatic's end. It's still the issue of trying to Rosh against Clock, and it's just not comfortable. So
There's no sneak in it.
No, there's just no sneak. You have to kill DJ off somehow, and he's just across the map, so you can't really jump him.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, Parker, they have to deal with that split push on bot every single time, just slowing the game down tremendously and just dragging this lead all the way back to 3K now. So T1's been losing a lot of ground, a lot of net worth. You see Armel even overtake Savage in net worth. Like the Quap has managed to find its foothold here, and I love Armel's build up as well. It's Ults into Wind Waker. So if you see someone in Chrono, if you're outside, just Ults and Ult your ally or something, and you can just have a good save. You can counteract Chrono now.
Yep. He's even got the Stormcraft to go with it, so even more Cyclones potentially flying around in these fights. But the slow crawl back into this game from Fnatic, giving them a lot of farm. T1's made some nice moves and had some... I mean, they're 25-13. They're up on kills, but they haven't been able to convert that into game-deciding objectives, taking lanes of Rax, really putting Fnatic in a hole economically. The fact that Fnatic have kept up in terms of gold means this game is still far from over. T1 need that next big team fight to go their way. They definitely have the tools and items to do it. They've got a level 25 Lina now. They have a refresher on Maz, so they're going to have double arena coming up. And Faceless Void, he is a force to be reckoned with as they look to force this Roshan. They're scouted up by the Rocket Flare, but they say they don't care. They've had enough. They want to force this fight. Enough of the split push, and question is, what can Fnatic do to contest this one? Roshan already down to near half health. Blink in, Willow. Ooh, very aggressive move. Just get a ward on the high ground, but they immediately infest bomb on in. Willow does get the self-use off. That's going to keep her alive for a little bit longer. Gets into the Shadow Run with a nice Chronosphere. Catches DJ on the edge as well as the lifesteal in the middle of it. Overgrowth comes in to buy some time, and now with the Static Storm on top of the Void, he's still going to go down to the Sonic Wave, but he gets the time walk off just barely at the end there. He survives through all the damage, and they kill the lifestealer. Januel blinking onto the high ground gets off a sick Overgrowth, but it just wasn't enough to bring down the Void. All up to Armel, perhaps. With BKBs being used, his shard could be the impact they need. With that little bit of extra silence, Cuckoo gets off the BKB in the front, has a refresher for a second BKB and potential ultimate, but now Queen of Pain could be in some trouble. Playing in the middle of this fight, Januel blinks in onto the Treant Protector. They're trying to force this. Roshan faces Void. Time walks in, time walks back after getting the kill on Jabs. He goes back in once more. He wants Januel. This Void, he is just so elusive, so pesky. He's killed off 3, forcing out to buy back the Queen of Pain. Gets glimpsed back and bursted down by the Laguna. T1 playing the perfect game of hit and run, cat and mouse. They poke, they prod, they take the pickoffs. The Faceless Void just baiting out spells with this time walk and reverse. And they finally secure themselves Roshan.
It takes a while. They do manage to get the kills they need, force out a lot of buybacks as well, and that second row should open up the high ground here for the side of T1. They do give the Aegis over to Savage, so not on Carl anymore, but it does feel like the Faceless Void has been playing on the edge. Makes it a lot harder to burst him down. Side of Fnatic, really, well-executed fight coming out from them, but T1 just had a better spacing. They managed to get the better angles. We saw a very late vac wall coming in as well from Jabs. They did manage to get some good control onto Savage, especially when they punched him back into Roche. Used the Hex as well. It looks like Savage was in danger of dying to his own illusion, but not enough damage happened. Not enough follow-through. I think for Fnatic, if that fight is staggered, T1 does get a lot more with their control. Like, we're still seeing massive impact with Whitemon and his Static Storm onto that Lifestealer. And even with the BKB for Raven, that's not going to work any longer here, Parker. The Ags is almost up for Whitemon. So Mute is there. AoE Doom is going to be in play. And that'll put Fnatic in a really bad spot, because that's where the investment for Raven went in. Just wanted that protection. He's still lacking damage. He does have the Basher, which did make it a little bit awkward for Savage up front, getting bashed against the Lifestealer, but beyond that, like that 4,000 gold investment for the Lifestealer might not pay off anymore.
Yep. We'll see if he can get up to that next big item to go with this. Feels like at this point, Fnatic needs... I mean, up until now, maybe they've been okay being the one getting jumped and trying to counterplay, but with a Disruptor Ags, they can't afford to have one of their key heroes, namely the Quap or the Lifestealer, getting caught out by that Aghanim Static Storm. unless they want to maybe bait it out with a buyback, but next move is up to T1. They've got the Aegis. They've also smoked up. They are hunting around towards this top lane, perhaps hoping and expecting Lifestealer to stick around, but that's not the case. Raven's out.
Yep, does manage to bail out in time. You don't see Armel in their back as well, so they don't manage to get that nice swing for the Quap. And Fnatic manages to dodge successfully, so they can buy more time to farm, buy more time to try to hit those item spikes that they might want. We're seeing Raven trying to go for a Daedalus and an Abyssal. It's just guaranteed control. Armel
Has the BKB. Just pops it and links to some creeps. Already down to the 6 seconds, so probably doesn't mind that he has to use it. It's just making sure that he doesn't get caught during this 50-second window where he's not going to have it. Has that cooldown reduction from the Spell Prism, so the BKB on an even lower cooldown. But with the BKB down, T1, they're just charging forward. They want this mid lane of Rax, knowing that this Queen of Pain doesn't have BKB.
And they've got the security of Aegis, so Savage can just stand in front, bait all the spells out onto him, make it a lot harder for Fnatic to look for that play if they want to commit everything onto just one, because T1 can jump in and follow up and counterfight themselves. One Rax set to fall, and Fnatic not willing to risk too much. They do pop the fort, but they can't really do much about Savage just standing there.
Yeah, they're just giving this one up, saying, let's defend these side lanes, play around our towers. Smoke up from Fnatic, though. Perhaps expecting T1 to go for a second lane. They are charging forward, scan, proccing on one, but the entire T1 team is here. DJ gets the ward, but that gets scouted, I believe, by a gem? Yeah, Dark Willow with the gem. They saw it get planted, so they have an idea of where Fnatic maybe are, and it doesn't look like Fnatic are going to venture to the high ground.
Yep. And that cuts off the movement from Fnatic. There is at least a very shoved in creep wave on bot, so they can't really go for that high ground play on the bot lane. And they save their mid-range Rax, which is nice, so you're not dealing with a full lane of full super creeps. And really super creeps are enough to keep that shoved in, though. T1, the big thing now is that their Aegis timing's being stalled out. Did you manage to spot Raven for a second, Savage?
He's hunting. Maybe think he could go for the Chronosphere. Raven, silver edging. He's going to tuck himself in.
Yeah. That's on the edge. I thought they had vision of him while he was cutting on to the right, but Savage just misses out completely. So nice dodge out. They are basically set to lose the Aegis without taking anything more on the map, so I think Fnatic's done a great job of avoiding these big engagements until then, just giving the minimum to T1 in terms of that mid objective. And that does mean that if T1 wants to play it slower, they could just hold out for next rush as well. No need to rush it. They've got control of the triangle. They can keep at least 2 lanes shoved in. There's always that one lane that Armel or Jabs can shove out themselves, but beyond that, you will have the creep advantage at the least here for T1. So they can just take it slow, choke out Fnatic as T1 was choked out in game 1, and just kind of work this game to their advantage. No need to make any big flashy plays. It's down to Fnatic really to find those angles, to find the opportunity to make something happen here.
Yeah. I would say though the main difference is it's not like Fnatic are getting, they've already got at least a lot of their farm and their items. Like they have what they need to maybe take a fight, so they're much happier to sit back than maybe T1 were last game, where T1 were just getting obliterated in terms of economy. So this game could start to swing more and more T1's way, but Fnatic seem at least content to kind of sit back and chill for now. The Aegis now down. Will either team look to make that next big move? Both teams, you know, trying to play around, hold on to as many buybacks as possible in the late game Dota. At the same time, also wanting to finish that next big item, like Clockwork building up a BKB. Something I like that Fnatic have done, you know, they've juggled around this Philosopher's Stone. Before Treant was holding it, now it's back on the Clockwork. They're just making sure they prioritize getting the gold on the right heroes.
Yeah, and just ensuring that even their supports can scale into this late game point. They have a lot of high ground defense as well. Yeah, we really have to respect that Darkseer in the late game. They're just infesting Jabs, just giving him a lot more HP to play with. 4K when he does jump in with his Iron Shell running, what he infest on. So he's not a very easy hero to pin down. And it just makes it awkward for T1. They're forced to respond to that split push that's always coming through with the Iron Shells, with a Pop jumping around. So they can't make too much progress up. Again, it's going to be down to the next Roshan. A minute and a half. Last time was instant respawn. We'll see if it's that way again for T1, but you should expect a lot of just a lot of emphasis on that Roche area. Like wards have to come in. Clockwork with a flare can kind of set you up for that.
Yep.
And it's going to be that awkward situation again for T1 where they need a pick off before Roche. They kind of want the Clockwork dead before you can really commit to Roche. And DJ's just been on point with standing back, letting Jabs take that initiation role.
Well, it has kind of become this big stalemate between these two teams, both posturing around their vision. Fnatic playing a bit more defensive on their side of the map. T1, you know, constantly fishing for these kills, but settling just for farming up the map. What do you see breaking this stalemate?
It's hard to say because I don't see anything item-wise. It's really just down to plays, right? Like, it's down to who wants to throw the gauntlet down first. I don't think there's any further itemization that makes a big change. Maybe something like a halberd on, say, Cuckoo might throw off Raven just a bit more, but not the biggest impact at this stage. So it's really just down to who gets caught out. And neither team wants to give that opportunity because there's so much on the line with this game. For Fnatic, if they win here, that immediately sets them up for that insane tiebreaker that can come through. For T1, this is their last opportunity to stay out of that situation and just have a tiebreaker with Boom. You know, that's it. So both sides don't really want to risk it, and it's leading to this more defensive, more patient playstyle. To just wait it out to get that safe win condition with Roshan, with Aegis and Cheese. Fnatic will smoke up though. Yeah. Roshan's still a minute 40 away, but they've got that mobility here on Fnatic. They could look for the jump if they want to.
Late side's go time. Rocket Flag gives some good vision. Darkseer in the front lines, infested with the Lifestealer. Has that Iron Shell going and looking for that normal punch initiation. With the Scythe of Ice follow-up, he's even got the Timeless Relic, so extra debuff duration. Really nice item for Jabs to have. But doesn't look like T1 are going to take the bait or push out. They seem to know something. You know, something's a bit astray. They 5-man smoked themselves, realizing that Fnatic not showing on the map could be a bit of a tricky situation for them, and they're looking to see what they can find with an initiation. Both teams knowing that Roshan can be up any second, as it has passed that potential respawn time.
Yep. And T1, oh, gonna go up.
Oh, Chronosphere. They jump in, they catch two. That's the Queen of Pain with Jabs. And Jabs finally going to pop himself out there. He wants the Faceless Void. The Illusion's doing some really good damage here. He's locked in place. He's done. He gets hexed up. They bring down the Void. Quap with the buyback. He's looking to turn it around. Great Clockwork initiation in the middle, but they're losing lives here. T1 are buying back, making sure they win this fight with Curls. Damage is Lena. Just a machine gun turret in the back lines, bursting through Fnatic, despite the Void going down. It's Carl on the Lena, just doing insane damage.
Yeah, just so much output from that Lena at this point. With a Satanic, with a casual Crystallis, probably the full Daedalus coming out soon. And Savage, great Chrono to start off. He gets the big targets he wants. He cuts off Jabs from having that initiation. He did still get controlled up in the end, but had the gold for the buyback. They've got an opportunity for the high ground here. No buyback on any of these heroes that died. So a defense with just Treant and Quap, it's not going to be enough to stop this push coming out.
And late game Dota, I was talking about, you know, usually you're holding those buybacks, but Fnatic saw an opening to buy some key items, a BKB on Clock, a Daedalus on Lifesteal, and said, we got to get these items to try and win this game, but now it may just be game over. T1 don't know these heroes don't have buybacks, but they are going to press the advantage and try and force them. They're going to catch the Queen of Pain bottom with the Static Storm. This may just be GG. It is. They call it. We're going to a game 3.
Oh, what a tight game. You know, it was T1 in control for a very long time, but Fnatic weren't completely out. They had ways to play that. They had some good counter initiation. I think Johnny Well did a great job with the early overgrowths, and then down the line it was on to Jabs with a Blinks and normal punch, doing a lot of work with a Hex as well to follow through. But that last fight was just unfortunate. T1 manages to get the counter smoke out. They managed to get the angle to go up the high ground. They get this massive Chrono that cuts off Jabs. Like, without that Darkseer to start the fights, T1 dictates that pace, and even if they went all in on the control on Savage afterwards with a Hex, with a normal punch to back wall, they didn't focus down Carl on the side. So they had to focus all the resources onto one hero, leaving the other big core to do the damage, and that was just bad timing. They bought out items, they got punished for it.
Yeah, getting jumped on there, even though Darkseer with all his health from the Infest survives through it and turns around to kill the Void. The bigger kill would have been Carl's Lena. So there was just too much to deal with item-wise. And for Fnatic, you know, 50 minutes on the back foot, at some point it felt like, you know, the cracks were just adding up and they were going to slip up eventually. And that's exactly what T1 found with that last big fight. So it's T1. They take game 2. We're going the distance. We're going to a game 3. You guys don't want to miss it. So we're going to go to a quick break and bring you back to the panel. Stick with us.